Hi, I'm Michael Croker, and this is Park Life. I've worked in the Australian theme park industry for a little over 30 years, and in this podcast series, I spend time in conversation with the people inside the business of making memories. Thanks for joining me. I hope you can subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the ride. Jolene Hill began her theme park life at a young age. Over the years, her career progressed dramatically, and today she is proudly a part of 3 generations making memories inside Village Roadshow theme parks.
Currently my role is merchandise manager in the retail division, so looking after basically I suppose all new product for retail, right from the development, all the life cycle through the product. So
that's obviously a very unique field, and we'll unpack that in just a moment. I want to go back and talk a little bit about the family history if we can, because there's a rich family history there with the theme park business. Can we talk a little bit about what your dad did in the parks for many years?
Yeah, of course. So my dad basically worked for the theme parks for 33 years. I believe he started in 1978.
And that was with?
That was with SeaWorld. And he worked under a guy called John Menzies.
Yeah.
He basically built all the rides. He did maintenance managing, project managing, all for SeaWorld, and then obviously into Movie World when we went into a group role. And he also had international parks as well under his belt. So he did Warner Brothers in Germany.
Yeah.
And yeah, things like that. So
can we highlight some of the rides or attractions, particularly for people who might be familiar with SeaWorld in its early years, its formative years? Are we talking Vikings Revenge Flume Ride?
That's correct.
One? Yeah,
it was one of them. I think that was the original ride that Dad did in SeaWorld.
Yeah.
Followed by obviously the Corkscrew
mm-hmm.
and the Pirate Ship, all those sort of old vintage rides that are now no longer. But
yeah, it's funny because as I was coming up in the business, I would see Ken walking about with John Menzies, who was the CEO at the time, and Ken was a figure that was always around,
Yes.
when we were in the park, and you would see the guys walking around construction sites, and we always kind of wondered, what do these guys do? And then to jump ahead years later and be at a boardroom where he's at the table was one of those pinch yourself moments for me.
Yeah.
Because he was always a bit of an icon in the parks. For many years, both he and John were almost inseparable, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were the dynamic duo for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, in 1991, they started the Open Movie World, and obviously before then, we're building the Movie World theme park here. So
that's a very singular role too. I don't think there's anyone else that would have the stories he would have in the country.
I think there's a few stories Dad could share that would surprise everyone.
We might have to get him along one time.
Yeah.
So when did your career start, and what did you grow up around the parks?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So obviously with Dad being at the parks, I was at the parks from a really young age. I remember being at the parks probably when I was a toddler. Mum and Dad obviously got probably better memories than what I have. But I remember a lot with being around the dolphins in particular, and Dad would be there on weekends, so I'd tag along, of course, and so I guess I had a love for the parks right from a very young age. I never thought back then, of course, that I'd be ever working for the theme parks, so here I am.
What drew you into the parks? When did that start?
Probably from when I was probably about 8 or 10 years old. So I used to come to Movie World then quite a lot. Yeah. I don't know, it was just a good feel for the parks, and I thought, when I was a teenager, I thought, wouldn't be a bad gig to work here. I thought it'd be pretty fun.
Dad would have been cool, right?
He was. Yeah, he was like the cool dad.
He's still cool.
Yeah, he's still cool. Yeah.
So
obviously when I was at school, I was quite popular in terms of, I had some birthday parties at the theme parks, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's so good, having a birthday party at the theme parks, like how cool." It was a lot of fun.
When did your professional life begin? What was the first job you had?
Very first job I had was actually in show and entertainment, and that started off at SeaWorld. So that was in December, January holidays. So that started in 94, 95, and that was with the Serpent Slayer light show that we had for that particular holiday period. You may even remember that.
I have memories.
Yeah.
What involvement did you have there? Were you playing
So I was playing Princess Adora.
Princess Adora?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was one of the princesses, and obviously took turns and a few nights a week doing that, and so that was my very first sort of involvement, I guess, with the theme parks from a working perspective.
Did the show and entertainment bug not bite you?
Not really, no. It wasn't. It was a fun thing to do at the time, but I don't think I could have seen myself doing that as a career.
Yeah.
From a retail point of view, I actually never thought about myself doing retail either. All through my years of schooling, I always wanted to be a marine biologist and work with the dolphins at SeaWorld. That was originally my first thought, and then obviously a traineeship came up in retail, and I took that, and the rest is history type of thing. So.
Was the traineeship something you took thinking it might be a pathway into the park and that you might diverge into marine sciences, or did you find yourself kind of falling into it and realising, hey, you know what, I kind of enjoy this and I think I can grow in it? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I didn't think for 1 minute it was going to lead to a marine sciences area. But I thought I'll give it a go. It was for a year contract on the job and off the job training. And I actually fell in love with retail. There was so many aspects other than just frontline selling to retail.
Let's unpack that. A lot of people may not know what that means when you say there's a lot of other aspects to it. For a lot of people, it probably sounds like it's more one-dimensional than it really is. Can you take us a little bit into the retail world from a theme park perspective a little more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously with retail, you have got your frontline sellers, but there's so much more into it than getting to that stage. You've got obviously warehousing, you've got product development, you've got buying, you've got artists. Everyone that has those little touch points within the retail business make up the goods that the frontline guys sell to this day. All those aspects of retail obviously are important. One can't survive without the other. And it is a real sort of chain effect to get the product right from concept right through to the shop floor. And it has a lot of input and a lot of many hands touching that.
Yeah, sure.
So
did you began obviously frontline, and I imagine you were handling point of sale.
That's right.
And how do you evolve from that frontline role into the more senior layers of that part of the business? How does that begin for you? What was the first opportunity that came along?
Prior to obviously the traineeship, I started off in the Christmas holiday period, and that was I think 95, 96 at Movie World. So it was like a 8-week period that they needed seasonal casuals for, and mainly I worked in the department store here, and that was that was a lot of fun, filling shelves, serving customers, cash handling procedures, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for that 8 weeks. Met a lot of people here, that some of them are still here to this day. And,
did you have mentorship? Did you have people around you, or a particular person or persons? Was there a culture of mentorship and being grown? Could you feel that you had opportunity to grow? And
yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of the staff that I worked with had been there since the open. So they were senior in their roles within team leaders within the stores, and it was encouraging to think that hey, they've already been here for 5, sometimes 6 years. Wonder where this would lead me. I'd like to carry on. It was a shame that it was for only an 8-week period, but and then obviously they kept lookout on the papers and things like that. And my traineeship at SeaWorld, there was a opening for a retail traineeship, and when I read the criteria of what it would be like off the job and on the job training, I thought, yeah, that's something I think I want to do. And then obviously once you do the traineeship of all the aspects of retail, that may lead into something else.
So you're paying your dues and you're in at the ground level and learning the craft of that part of the business. What's the first senior appointment that you have, and when does that come along? And What was challenging for you to get to that point? Did you have inherent obstacles along the way that you had to work through?
Not really. It was, I suppose, right place, right time.
Yeah.
So obviously completed the traineeship for 1 year, and then obviously went back to a sales assistant role within SeaWorld, and started to the traineeship for that year was so it was just busy. It was on the job, off the job. There was always something going on. All the different modules. It was really mentally stimulating, and then going back into the stores, into one shop. I kind of got a little bit bored because I had already done that, and I felt like I needed something more. I then went to my supervisors and said, is there anything else, that I can do, that I can learn? I was eager to learn. And then all of a sudden a maternity contract came up within the merchandise office at SeaWorld. So that was in the buying office. So at that stage they had 2 buyers. One was obviously going on maternity leave. And
Can we just explain what a buyer actually does? So it might sound a little straightforward, but what's a buyer doing for the business?
Yeah, so a buyer is basically doing all product selection for the business based on analytics and obviously...
And sorry, just in that space.
Customer.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, the analytics around the buying habits of the customer, yeah?
Correct, yeah correct. And then they're obviously responsible for, buying the right merchandise for the right outlets and obviously being very customer focused. The analytics tell you what the customer wants to buy. Yeah. Trends outside in the marketplace. The buyer's got to be very aware of that.
How did you find the transition into that role during that period of covering the maternity leave?
It was a lot of fun because I had touched in the buying sector for my traineeship, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was one of my favourite sectors out of the whole 12 months.
What was the appeal of that?
I guess the new product selection, how it was selected, why it was selected, the whole development of the product, how things are made. To this day, that still gives me a bit of a buzz, even in my current role now. Just going out and seeing how things are made, going to suppliers' factories, and seeing something other than just a T-shirt hanging on the shelf. It's like, wow, that was how that was made. I actually saw that.
So there's a whole supply chain, isn't there, that has a point of origin before it makes its way onto a shelf.
Yeah, correct.
There's a science behind it and a business behind all of it at multi-layers. So after the maternity leave in that particular role, what comes next in terms of your growth through the business? Yeah,
so then I was offered a permanent position within the merchandise office. So I was assistant to the buyer at the time. And I pretty much worked there for a good couple of years. Yeah. And then, so the buyer, how he trained me was giving me responsibilities of different categories. So like I might have, fashion accessories, and he goes, out of fashion accessories, look after all the sunglasses or the jewellery. So he'd give me different aspects within those categories just to really get my teeth into, make those decisions for myself to learn, but under his guidance. So, ultimately it was his responsibility. But I got to learn those categories that way and learnt a bit of the buying role and sort of how to stand on my own 2 feet.
Isn't it great though that you had the right person there at the right time in terms of being able to grow and not be stifled, that someone's saying, here's the parameters for you to work in, you make your decisions, I'll have oversight on it, but you effectively run your small corner of the business.
Yeah, that's right. So like you mentioned before, if I had any mentors, so Gary Turner, he was one of my mentors for the buying role. So it made it a lot of fun, taught me a lot of things, gave me, I suppose, the flexibility to be able to just do it. Go there. I've given you the guidance. Now you can go and execute whatever it is I needed to execute. So yeah, it gave me that bit of freedom. It was really good.
How did you find the whole process of then? Obviously, you've got SeaWorld and Warner Brothers Movie World. There's Wet and Wild, Paradise Country. I imagine you've got touch points on all of these sites, right?
Yeah, we have.
And more.
Yeah.
So, can we go back a little bit and just talk around the idea of working with intellectual property or IP? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're doing a little bit of that with the likes of Nickelodeon at a SeaWorld, and then you're doing a lot of that with the Warner Brothers Movie World with everything that comes behind WB, and then Looney Tunes, DC. You and I both worked on the Lionsgate Entertainment World project in Zhuhai,
That's right.
China. That's a completely different market with completely different buying habits from the locals and the business that's generated around there. How have you found that process of working with all those different IPs? How do you navigate that space? What's that been like?
Look, I won't lie. Some of it has been quite challenging. Obviously, with different IPs come different rules and regulations. We've obviously got to follow those guidelines for the different properties. You just work with it, and I guess the more you do work with it, the easier it actually does become. Depending on the product, we're always dealing with all different licenses, I guess, within those propities.
What's
every
one
day.
What's one of the IPs that you came across that really excited you and you were like, I'm so glad I get to put my teeth into this? I know that on Lionsgate Entertainment World we were working with obviously the Lionsgate IP with everything that came with the likes of Twilight and the Hunger Games franchise. Was there an IP that came along where you thought, oh, yeah, this is going to be fun, we can do some really terrific stuff here?
Probably not one in particular. I think they're all fun in their own
way.
right. Yeah, because they do cater for all different markets and different age groups. There's not one that I would pick that was better than any other.
Yeah.
Obviously, we deal more in Looney Tunes and DC Comics, which is here, and obviously Nickelodeon at SeaWorld. But yeah, Lionsgate was certainly different. As I said, it was IPs that I'd never ever had dealt with before, and especially to the Chinese market. Going in somewhat blind in terms of you don't know the China market, what they're going to buy. So there was some considerable research around that project to try and establish a product list for that park.
The China project, for all its challenges inherently, obviously grew your knowledge and experience even more so again.
Yeah, definitely.
When do you arrive at the point where you've got the title you have now? Can you tell us when that happened? What year are we talking?
What year was that? I think that was around 2016.
Yeah.
I became merchandise manager for the parks.
Did that feel like obviously a high watermark in your career, where you felt like, I'm ready for this well and truly now? And
yeah, absolutely. As I said, when I first started my traineeship, I never really thought then, working in management. Even when I was a retail buyer, that was back then. That was my original goal to get towards a retail buyer. Buying for my own categories because doing what I love. But yeah, never did I think that I would become a manager within the parks. That was really probably one of the career highlights that I've had. So,
how's it felt in the years that have followed? In terms of, do you see yourself coming through? Do you find that you see, I see a version of me here, or I see a potential in this person there, and do you find yourself mentoring as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so a couple of ladies that I work with now, they've definitely got a lot of potential. We work together on many things, but yeah, they've all got their own unique way about them, and I can definitely see them coming through.
What projects right now have you busy? Is there a lot going on right now and across the parks and internationally?
Yeah, there is. We're working on obviously Space Jam at the moment for Movie World. So that obviously gets released in July this year. So we've got a fair bit of product coming for that. We've also got a Hollywood range that we've worked on. So that's just bringing back the movie magic of the parks. So it's basically your movie reels, your film strips, all those types of things, all those elements.
What happens when you have something, you mentioned Space Jam, so when something like Wonder Woman 84, for example, breaks, and there's obviously conversations with WB, and then there's a lead time. Mm-hmm. Can you just take us through what that process is like when you're dealing with a big brand like that, and let's say Space Jam, for example? We know this is coming, we've got conversations with our friends at WB, there's a calendar of content we know that is on its way down the pipe. What's the next thing you then have to do in terms of the process from conceptual design and the backwards and forwards? What does that feel like before you get to product on shelf?
Yeah, right. Okay. So basically from concept to product on shelf, that could take anywhere between 5 to 6 months in terms of development. When you add license on that, you would add another at least a month.
Why is that?
Basically, it's approval time. So concept, you've got to go through several sets of approvals. So you've got concept approval, you've got a pre-production sample approval, then you've got final sample approvals before it actually makes its way into the park. So that just approval time alone is approximately around a month. And the lead times from different vendors, production lead times can take anywhere between 4 and 5 months. Shipping, especially now with the whole COVID world, shipping's obviously delayed at the moment. So where something might take 4 weeks to ship, we're looking sometimes 6-7 weeks, sometimes even double 8 weeks to ship. So they're little variables along the way. They're a little unknown. Sometimes you can get quick approvals done. Other times approvals take the full amount of the contracted time. Other times they're overdue. So that all obviously affects your timeline in terms of development. Production suppliers have got their own challenges with staff. If they don't have enough staff or enough people in their production team, that can actually affect production time as well. So it takes longer to produce a product.
Yeah. Look, I remember when we were working with AMC out of the US to get approval on zombies that we were creating for a Fright Nights maze for Walking Dead. And while it's not retail, the IP process is very similar to what you're describing. So before we could do anything with the zombies in the maze, we had approval on concept and the initial creative intention, and then it was about the execution. So how the character's going to look, what's the wardrobe choices, etc. And I can recall one day we had maybe between 30 and 40 actors come in about a month out from the event, and we did a full day of makeup and photos to send across to AMC and get approval on the makeup for the representation of the zombies.
Right.
And so by the time we had the photographs taken and sorted the lighting and then got the photos across, sent everybody home, we expected that we were going to get a green light because we all thought it looked amazing. And then we got the note back saying that the zombies still look to have blood, fresh blood pumping in their veins. They still seem a little pinkish. They need to look absolutely dead. Please resubmit. And I remember thinking, wow, back we went and we did the whole process again. But to your point, when you are dealing with intellectual property that is that big at the time and in some quarters still, and is so globally renowned, the checks and balances are a little more granular than
That's
some
right.
others, and you have to be completely on point. You mentioned lead time before, so you have to keep enough lead time up your pocket to allow for notes like that may cause you to have to go back and reset, which
That's
is
right.
exactly what we had to do. It was our first outing with AMC, so they don't know us. We're living on an island on the other side of the world and telling them that we know what we're doing. So they're feeling us out as well. Can they represent the brand as well as they say they can? Have you found over the years that when you get the relationships moving, that there's more trust and there's an easier flow for approvals? Has that been your learning, or is it?
It depends what it is. Obviously, with the new property, like we referenced before, like Space Jam, a little bit of backwards and forwards is still going on. So you would expect that with a new IP within the Warner Brothers banner. But the likes of Looney Tunes, DC Comics, of course, there's a little bit more trust than what there was when we first started with those IPs. Yeah, absolutely.
You had a beginning with a career that started very much at the ground level and has gone on from there. What do you say to young people that are trying to similarly, regardless of industry, build a career and have an ambition to work in a particular industry and equally grow within it, and perhaps at some point in time, be in a position of leadership and influence? What would you tell a young person about going into a career of choice and building a career from scratch?
I think it's important to love what you do. I think you've got to have a real passion for what you do. And I guess that tells you in your gut when you first start a job, is this something I can see myself doing long term? I guess if the answer to your question is yes, then pursue it. Work hard, keep your head down, do whatever it is that you need to do, no matter how menial the job seems, because you learn from it. No matter what experience or job that you're given, you do learn from it. Whilst it might be, cleaning the floor or vacuuming a shop or anything like that, it's still a task that's got to be done. You take all the learnings from what you can and all the opportunities you can from the business and build on them. That's right.
It's interesting you mentioned passion before, and I think that word can be overused for a lot of people, but I think you're absolutely right, because without that passion, it's much harder to be resilient.
That's right.
Because whichever path you walk, whether it's the one you've chosen or the one you think you should be on, there's going to be adversity and obstacles. It's much easier to push through obstacles and find the strength to move through adversity if you're passionate about being on that path.
That's right.
You're more likely to surrender if you realise, you know what, I don't even know why I'm putting all this energy in. I don't have a feeling for it. So it is, I think, largely exactly what you just said. If the passion is there, you can find resilience underneath the passion.
Yeah, I understand.
If you had to look back, what's the thing that still gets you up in the morning and still gets you motivated to do the job after all these years?
I guess it's creating memories. Like our parks are all about creating memories for our guests. We are an extension of their experience in the park. So I guess for our people to keep coming back to our parks, enjoying our parks, loving the parks like what we do, we've got to have a certain love, I think, for our jobs, and goes back to that passion. I love the fact that I can have a hand in developing products, with all the talented people that I work with. Creating a product, seeing it arrive, putting it on a shelf, literally watching it fly out the door, that says something. It's gratifying to see. It's and it's great. You might be on the other side of the world visiting another theme park, and you see someone that's wearing a Looney Tunes hat or even a SeaWorld hat.
That's great.
Or something.
And the origin of that very piece that they're wearing.
Yeah, that's right. So that's something special in its own right. But I think the most important is that we're on trend to make memories for people that come and visit our parks.
Yeah.
And that memory is in terms of all departments, like show and entertainment, operations, retail's just a small piece of that memory. But I think if everyone works together, we can provide that special memory for the guests that come and visit the park.
If you had to look back, I'm sure there's many. Is there a moment that stands out as one of the proudest moments of your professional life?
Oh wow, there are many. Proud, probably with my traineeship, I guess, because I was fairly young when I was doing the traineeship. I never thought in a million years that I would top my class in terms of the off-the-job training. So I ended up winning a Retail Excellence Award for that. So through the college that I was training with, and then obviously because of that Retail Excellence Award, I went on to win Trainee of the Year.
Wow.
So I haven't really won too much in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not a kind of a lucky person, I guess, in that aspect. Yeah. So that was definitely a proud moment. Didn't expect to win that at all. Yeah. I know it made all my supervisors and management proud at the time. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That young kid's gone on to do really well.
Yeah, I think so.
And Dad's obviously very proud.
Yeah, Mum and Dad both very proud.
And it keeps the bloodline moving through the parks, making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And creating memories.
Yeah.
Dad was building rides and attractions, and your daughter's creating memories in a whole different way.
Yeah, that's right. So now it's third generation now at the parks.
Is that right?
Similar to yourself.
Yeah.
And so my daughter works here now too as a frontline sales assistant at Movie World. So
the circle continues on.
The circle continues. Yeah.
Thanks for sitting down and making some time here on Park Life. It's been great to capture some of your story.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Jolene.
I hope you enjoyed this latest episode. You'll find Park Life on Twitter and me, Michael Croker, on Instagram at Mike_Croker. See you next time.